I didn't experience the typical childhood notions of crushes or romance. Instead, I was raised in a vastly different environment. As a baby, I somehow found myself in a vast house surrounded by women and girls, nestled in the middle of nowhere. We did everything together. We referred to ourselves as a commune, but in hindsight, it resembled more of a cult. We all dressed the same, wore our hair in identical styles, and eerily resembled one another. To outsiders, it appeared as if we were all sisters. In reality, the headmistress dictated our appearances and subjected us to many makeovers to transform us into her walking duplicates. Some girls were fortunate enough to have naturally blonde hair, but I was forced to bleach mine from a very young age. The headmistress was unyielding in her pursuit of maintaining our uniform image, which extended far beyond matching outfits and hair colors. I vividly recall one incident when I was around 8 years old. Another girl my age ventured into the woods without informing anyone, an act strictly forbidden by our rules. She ended up playing amidst the trees and inadvertently got her head tangled in a broken maple tree. When some older members eventually located her, her hair was entirely covered in the sticky residue from the tree. After a futile hour of attempting to wash it out, the headmistress emerged with a knife and hastily hacked off all the affected hair. It looked dreadful, but that wasn't the worst part. Subsequently, she ordered us to form a line, and one by one, she began giving everyone the same careless haircut. I cherished my hair, and when it was my turn, I cried as loudly as I could. It wasn't my fault, I protested. Why was I being punished? There's no me here, the headmistress remarked as she severed my hair. My hair was already fragile from repeated bleaching, and the headmistress cutting it off made matters worse. It rendered all of us unattractive, a clear manifestation of the cult's purpose, erasing our individual identities. It might sound like a nightmare, but that was my life for several years. Occasionally, I stumbled upon unsettling occurrences, but I chose not to address them, assuming they were normal, or at least I did for a time. One day, at the tender age of 8, I embarked on a little adventure of my own. I didn't perceive any harm in it. While I wasn't supposed to leave the farm, I was unwilling to endure another arduous 8-hour shift tending to the crops. I figured I could sneak away for a while, so I bided my time until the headmistress departed. Then, I informed the other girls that I needed to use the restroom and swiftly darted around the corner when they weren't looking. My next step was to make a hasty exit from the house. At that point, my travels had never taken me beyond the confines of the farm. I had expected to encounter more woods or something similar, but all I found was a fence. However, it wasn't an ordinary picket fence, it was adorned with menacing barbed wire. Just as I was attempting to get a better look at what lay on the other side, I heard the headmistress's voice. She sounded as though she were situated on the opposite side of the fence, but I couldn't see her. In my quest for a clearer view, I inadvertently injured my hand severely on the barbed wire, prompting me to cry out in pain. Before I could discern the source of the voice, the headmistress appeared suddenly. Her concern wasn't for my well-being, though. It was sheer anger that consumed her. She didn't bother to assist me with bandaging my wound. Instead, she forcefully escorted me back to the other girls as my tears streamed down my face. She subsequently grasped me by the arm and proceeded to lecture us all. Initially, her words centered on our irresponsibility and the ease with which someone could escape. Then she delved into the perils of venturing beyond the protected area. If you found the haircut peculiar, brace yourself for what followed. After my hand was bandaged, we were all required to wear hand wraps. It was quite strange. The other girls voiced their complaints, citing the added difficulty it brought to our farm work. However, the headmistress insisted that it united us all. Despite sensing that something was amiss in our lives, I lacked any frame of reference. The only material I ever read was the printouts produced by the headmistress. I had never watched television or listened to music that we didn't create ourselves. I genuinely believed that the world ceased to exist beyond the walls. According to the headmistress, we resided at the world's center, with nothing but monsters and the unknown beyond the fences. I acknowledge that some of my past beliefs might sound foolish, but please reserve judgment. It constituted my entire reality. You're probably curious about how we managed in such a confined world. Well, it wasn't easy. First and foremost, there was a great deal of prayer. My entire life revolved around the religion that the headmistress had devised. Our faith emphasized the significance of discipline and hard work. Whenever we weren't tending to the farm, we were praying. There was even a time when we spent a full 4 hours kneeling in absolute silence. My knees were severely bruised. Prayer and labor were the sole activities we were permitted to engage in. I inquired of the headmistress about the purpose of our intense prayers, mainly because my knees were becoming increasingly painful. She informed me that we were praying for the only two crucial elements in life: the safety of our fellow sisters and the birth of babies. Now, I understand what you might be thinking. How could babies be conceived in an all-female society? Please promise me you won't laugh at what I'm about to reveal, as I've never had a genuine conversation about the origins of babies. You'll have to wait a little while, because comprehending where we believe babies came from necessitates understanding our worldview. We were raised to believe that we originated from the farm itself. I genuinely thought that the entire world could be encapsulated within that small 4-acre plot. You might question why we never ventured beyond the walls. Well, we were nurtured on terrifying tales. On a day when we faced a shortage of vegetables to cultivate on the farm, the headmistress instructed us to halve our portions. I was so famished, I inquired if I could search for food beyond the walls or even establish a new farm in potentially more fertile soil. She cautioned me that venturing beyond the walls would result in us being devoured by colossal monsters. She spoke of massive creatures constructed of metal and adorned with flashing lights that would swallow us whole merely for amusement. While part of me wanted to be skeptical, there were instances where people would mysteriously vanish. I didn't fully grasp it until I grew a bit older, perhaps around the age of 11. We conducted a roll call each morning following our sunrise prayers. One day, Gabriella, the girl who always stood beside me, was conspicuously absent. I assumed she was unwell, but she never reappeared. During lunch, the headmistress approached us with a disconcerting explanation that a mystical force had spirited her away during the night, and monsters had consumed her. I was gripped by fear. She admonished us never to venture beyond the fence, no matter what we witnessed. I thought it was utter nonsense until I laid eyes on one of those monsters firsthand. It was a gargantuan, airborne, buzzing creature. We all promptly retreated indoors and implored for assistance. The headmistress directed us to pray for our safety. We knelt together in prayer for roughly 8 hours and felt immense relief when our principal informed us that our prayers had been answered and no one would be devoured that day. Some of you may have already deduced the object of our prayers: an airplane. It may sound absurd to you, but I have never felt more fortified than I did in that moment. That experience provided the conclusive evidence I needed to wholeheartedly embrace our way of life. I ceased questioning our practices and became a model member of our community. On that evening, we conducted a modest funeral service for Gabriella, and I led the prayer. As was customary, we didn't have a body to inter. Instead, we buried a pair of her shoes in the soil, believing that they would nourish the earth and facilitate the birth of new babies. We were taught that we all sprouted from seeds buried deep in the earth. This is why we toiled tirelessly on the farm. If we faltered even for a single day, we jeopardized the potential harvest of new babies for that season. This leads us to the most significant deception of all. Now, I'll elucidate precisely how we acquired those babies. Naturally, it's quite challenging to produce offspring without the presence of men. Incredibly, the headmistress concocted a lie to explain this to us. I'll never forget the moment I truly grasped the reality of our situation. The headmistress announced that she needed to embark on an important mission outside, accompanied by 4 other leaders. Curious, I inquired about her destination, and she responded that she was going to gather baby seeds. Upon her return, she would place them in the secret cellar, and if we diligently worked throughout the season, new babies would be the result. The arrival of new babies marked the most joyous time of the year. I'm not exaggerating. I genuinely believe that babies grew from the ground, akin to carrots. I have an affinity for babies. It was considered a significant milestone for the older girls within the commune to be bestowed with a baby of their own and given the privilege of naming it. Subsequently, we would collectively nurture and raise the infant. When I reached the age of 15, officially coming of age, I eagerly delved into the realm of baby care. When I believed I had garnered sufficient knowledge and readiness, I approached the headmistress with a request for assistance in raising my own baby. The headmistress pondered my request momentarily before delivering her verdict. She explained that I needed to intensify my efforts and demonstrate unwavering loyalty to the commune. Within our community, having a baby was considered the highest honor. Over the ensuing years, I was granted additional privileges and granted more freedom to explore the compound as I ascended in status. On my 17th birthday, the headmistress summoned me. In our community, where labor was held in such high regard, birthdays were commemorated by transitioning to a new job. Typically, this entailed a shift in our farm responsibilities and rotation out of our former roles. I had anticipated a shift from pumpkin cultivation to apple picking, but I was taken aback when the headmistress disclosed a much more significant assignment. She designated me as a perimeter guard, emphasizing the gravity and peril associated with the role, reserved solely for the most trusted individuals. Furthermore, she assured me that this duty would be a stepping stone toward fulfilling my aspiration of having a baby. My sole responsibility was to patrol the perimeter ceaselessly, ensuring that no one entered or exited our compound. She entrusted me with what I believe to be the sole piece of technology within our community, a walkie-talkie. For someone who had never ventured close to the fence, I hadn't anticipated the degree of activity associated with this role. Little did I know that one fateful day during my routine rounds, I would encounter the most harrowing experience of my life. In the distance, I heard the unmistakable sound of branches snapping on the opposite side of the fence. My immediate reaction was to contact the principal using my walkie-talkie. She instructed me to return to my quarters while assuring me that she would handle the situation. However, curiosity overwhelmed my better judgment, and I made the impulsive decision to extinguish my candle, power down my walkie-talkie, and discreetly position myself behind a nearby bush to observe what was unfolding. As fate would have it, a few minutes later, the headmistress emerged, carrying devices that I had never encountered before. Subsequently, I learned the names of these two mysterious items. The first was a flashlight, which cast a far more brilliant and revealing illumination than our conventional lanterns. The heightened visibility allowed me to discern the source of the earlier commotion. It was Reagan, a youthful member of our fellowship. Initially, I felt relief wash over me, knowing there were neither menacing intruders nor malevolent creatures lurking nearby. However, my sense of security was fleeting. Without warning, the headmistress produced the second device, which I now recognized as a firearm. In response, Reagan sprinted away, and the headmistress pursued her with such swiftness that they soon vanished from my view. Suddenly, a resounding bang reverberated through the air. Unfamiliar with the effects of a firearm, I surmised that a colossal tree had toppled upon them. Overcome by concern, I rushed to their aid, only to find no evidence of fallen trees. Instead, I collided with the headmistress. In my distressed state, I inquired about the situation and the whereabouts of Reagan. In response, I recounted the truth, albeit only a fraction of it. I recounted hearing Reagan's screams, followed by a thunderous crash. Tears streamed down my face as I shared what I had witnessed. The headmistress, however, attributed the incident to the abduction of Reagan by the monstrous entities she had previously described. She'd asserted that despite her valiant struggle against these creatures, it was ultimately futile, leading to Reagan's disappearance. The headmistress promptly escorted me back indoors, extracting a solemn promise from me never to venture into the forest and to safeguard the secrecy of what I had witnessed. Part of my role entailed upholding the illusion of our community's safety. Despite my lingering doubts, something about the story didn't quite add up for me, and my curiosity gnawed at me relentlessly. Little did I realize that I was on the cusp of unraveling the enigma for myself. During one of my routine patrols, I suddenly heard a deafening rumble. To my astonishment, one of the very monsters the headmistress had warned us about was nearing the fence. It stood imposingly, with two luminous eyes peering from its front, and it appeared to contain a person within its metallic frame. I couldn't discern their appearance clearly, but they waved in my direction. I was bewildered by the sight of a person outside our secluded walls. If everyone in the world resided within these confines, how could this be? I urgently contacted the headmistress using my walkie-talkie and relayed what I had witnessed: a monstrous entity holding a young girl hostage. The headmistress instructed me to return home promptly, but my determination to prevent another victimization compelled me to take action. I called out to the person, assuring them that I would rescue them. To my astonishment, they emerged from the monstrous contraption, and their appearance was unlike any girl I had ever encountered. Towering in stature, possessing broad shoulders, and adored with facial hair, they possessed a deep, resonant voice that sent shivers down my spine. They greeted me with a casual, "Hey, hey, hey, what's all the commotion? Are you okay?" My mouth grew parched, and I found myself at a loss for words. This newfound sensation perplexed me. It felt as though butterflies were fluttering within my stomach, rendering me unable to formulate a coherent response. "Oh wow, you're really sweet," they remarked, further exacerbating my discomfort. I struggled to understand this unfamiliar emotion that had taken hold of me. Suddenly, the headmistress materialized on the scene and sternly demanded that I distance myself from the young boy. Boy? I contemplated the unfamiliar term. The boy, however, reacted defensively, rebuking the headmistress and questioning her sanity. He inquired why she had kept a teenager confined within a compound enveloped by barbed wire. Gazing upon me, he extended an offer for me to accompany him to freedom, should I desire it. The headmistress interjected, asserting that I harbored no such desire. Nevertheless, I found myself instinctively drawn toward the fence, my body acting beyond my control, guided by some primal force. The headmistress warned me with a dire proclamation. "If you cross this line, Reagan, you'll never be allowed back here again. Mark my words." Yet my resolve had already been set, and nothing could deter me from following the young boy. The headmistress stormed away in frustration. The boy extended a hand to help me up, and he opened the monster for me. I hesitated momentarily before gingerly stepping inside. With a bow, I expressed gratitude to the monster for providing us safe passage. The boy chuckled at my unfamiliarity with such a common mode of transportation. "What? You've never seen a car before?" he teased. He clarified that it was not a monstrous entity at all. While I thought I had a comprehensive understanding of the world within the commune's walls, my journey with Cameron revealed just how much I had yet to discover. As we ventured through the city, I marveled at the multitude of new sights that unfolded before me. Streetlights, puppies, and even a serene lake were all entirely foreign to me. The overwhelming sensations of fear and novelty washed over me simultaneously. Cameron patiently guided me through this unfamiliar terrain, explaining everything along the way. Eventually, something familiar caught my eye. A picture of my sister, emblazoned with the word "missing," affixed to a tree. I urgently implored Cameron to halt the car, and we disembarked. Bewildered, he inquired about the situation, prompting me to elucidate that the missing girl in the photograph was one of the sisters who had recently joined the commune. I was convinced that we needed to report this to the police. Cameron agreed, and we proceeded to the local police station. There, they sifted through a plethora of missing children reports, revealing a shocking truth. All the children who had grown up on the farm had, in reality, been abducted. I inquired whether they could help me discover my own origins, but unfortunately, the records did not extend far enough back to provide an answer. Guiding the police back to the commune, they apprehended the headmistress along with some of the senior members, leading to a profound revelation about the life I had left behind. Authorities took custody of all 50 minors at the commune, with plans to either reunite them with their families or arrange for their adoption. As my 18th birthday was imminent, Cameron proposed that I could live with him since I would soon be considered an adult. He offered to teach me about the world of love and guide me through my newfound reality. It was a jarring revelation that my entire life had been founded on deception. Cameron played a pivotal role in helping me acclimate to the real world, introducing me to countless extraordinary experiences. I marveled at simple pleasures like ice cream, explored the wonders of grocery stores, and reveled in the freedom of wearing clothes that didn't need to conform to a communal standard. Though Cameron described me as sweet, I recognized that adapting to this new life could be challenging for me at times. Upon entering his apartment, I was confronted by what seemed like a futuristic alternate reality. In a moment of confusion and concern, I reacted by freeing a baby trapped in a box, only to discover it was actually an expensive entertainment device known as a television. Within minutes of my arrival, I had inadvertently damaged it. When I expressed my desire for a baby and asked if we could find sperm, Cameron's laughter greeted my incredulous reaction. He proceeded to enlighten me about the true process of human reproduction, which I found rather repulsive. I even suggested adopting one of my younger sisters, but Cameron was determined to distance us from my cult upbringing, insisting on forging new connections and leaving the past behind. Our relocation took us far away from the city and my sisters, allowing me to gradually adapt to modern technology. I secured a job at a local daycare center and began embracing the semblance of a normal life. Yet, as the joy of my pregnancy filled me, I yearned to share it not only with Cameron, but also with my sisters. This longing led me to create a secret Facebook account, attempting to reconnect with them and inquire about their lives. I engaged in conversations with some of my sisters, discovering that many were still pursuing their education. Transitioning into a more conventional life wasn't too challenging for my sisters, as they were still relatively young. Among those I reconnected with was my closest friend from the commune, with whom I shared a similar age and the experience of liberation at around 18 years old. To my dismay, I learned that she was deeply dissatisfied with her new life. She held a strong aversion to technology and harbored fear of interacting with boys. Loneliness weighed heavily on her, and she confided in me about her ongoing struggles. I longed to share the news of my pregnancy with her, believing it would be a source of joy and connection, but instead, it seemed to push her over the edge. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail from her, declaring her desire never to see me again. I showed the note to Cameron, and his response was far from supportive. He blamed me for deliberately involving myself with such people, accusing me of seeking out drama and casting myself as the victim. This marked the moment when I began to realize that Cameron was not the knight in shining armor I had initially believed him to be. I found myself without a support system, and just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, tragedy struck. I lost the baby. Devastated by this loss, I received little sympathy or understanding from Cameron, who grew increasingly unsympathetic toward my depression and changing mood. Although Cameron had been sweet and affectionate at the start of our relationship, his interest waned quickly, and he grew bored with me. On one occasion, while I was out shopping, I caught him kissing another girl. Confronting him, I expected an apology or reassurance, but instead he deflected blame onto me, suggesting that our relationship had fallen short of his expectations. His words left me feeling disillusioned and disheartened. Cameron showed no willingness to work through our issues and promptly filed for divorce. To my dismay, he went on to marry the other girl, and they even had a baby together. It was a heart-wrenching period in my life, marked by overwhelming sadness and unhappiness. I found myself adrift, lacking the support system I had grown accustomed to during my time with my sisters. Loneliness weighed heavily on me, and the prospect of being alone was something I struggled to cope with. Desperate to fill the void, I attempted to find another boyfriend, but it proved to be a challenging endeavor. My difficulty stemmed from my inexperience in communicating with men, and it seemed that my inability to bear children was a significant deterrent. I longed for the sense of belonging and security that my old home had provided, and I would have given anything to return to my commune. While I understood that not everyone would choose to live in a cult, I couldn't help but feel that it had been a far better existence than my current one. What was particularly agonizing was the fact that my inability to have a child stripped me of what I had once considered the highest honor I could achieve. Left alone and unloved, I couldn't help but entertain the unsettling thought of whether the headmistress had been right all along, and if the only thing waiting for me outside the fence was a living hell.